Yesterday, when we looked at some of the description of God, what did we say? In a way, we said God was formless, right? So, in spite of God being formless and in spite of God being like beyond description, beyond providing these characteristics, we see that Sikh scripture also assigns or gives many names to refer to the divine. Okay, now these names we find often are kind of derived from both Hindu and Muslim tradition. Okay, and therefore it also shows us the inclusive nature of Sikhism. Now, first is the Sat Kartar, which means true creator. So here this emphasizes God's role as ultimate source of all existence. Then you have the Sat Nam, that is true name, which again signifies that God's essence is truth. And therefore, it is this recognition of this truth which helps the person in the spiritual journey. And then you have Vaheguru, which means hail to the Guru, or it can also mean wonderful teacher. And this has been one of the most widely used. Okay, so Vaheguru is one of the most widely used names for God in Sikhism. And therefore this reflects the belief that God is the ultimate teacher who guides individuals towards spiritual enlightenment. And therefore this multiplicity of names which we have in Sikhism, so these are some of the mainly used ones. There are others also. Now this reflects the idea that God is beyond any limitation of language, culture or tradition. And therefore in Sikhism, all paths recognize and honor God as one true God. And therefore the different names are just expressions of one God. Now yesterday we spoke about Sikhism drawing from the elements of Islam as well as Hinduism, right? So what do you think has Sikhism borrowed from Islam? Okay, that means the monotheism, right? What is monotheism? one God. Okay, so we see that when it comes to the Sikhism's relationship with Hinduism and Islam, it gets elements from both, from Hinduism as well as from Islam, which were two dominant religions during the time of Guru Nanak. Now, from Hinduism, we see that you have the Vedantic concept of Om. So, next day when you have the course on Vedanta, you will get into more details of this. But for now, just to have a glance, so this Vedantic concept of Om is a kind of a mystic syllable that represents the origin of the universe. And therefore, this has been reinterpreted into Sikhism as the Ek Onkar. But we see that unlike Hinduism, Sikhism rejects the worship of multiple deities rather than how Hinduism has many deities. So it borrows the Vedantic concept of the origin of the universe from Hinduism, but doesn't take in the concept of many deities. Now from Islam we see that you have the idea of a singular formless God, okay, which is similar to the Islamic belief of similar to the Islamic belief in Allah. Now we see that at the same time Sikhism also rejects the rigid theological doctrines and ritualistic practices of Islam. So this in a way helps to promote the idea of Sikhism as an inclusive religion, and also that God is inclusive, God is beyond form, and therefore God can be, the contact with God we can get through ethical living and personal devotion. Now, how do you think can one get into contact with God in Sikhism? What are the ways? Meditation is one. Any other? Scripture, then hymns. Anything else? Yesterday we saw something. Yes, very good. That is also by chanting of the names, meditating on the name of God. Okay, so we see that these are ways in which one, mostly Vaheguru is used. That is the most widely used, Vaheguru. So when we see with regards to worship and devotion, now they realize that contact with God is not achieved in a way through ascetic practices or through elaborate rituals. So we have already seen that. Okay, but they believe in everyday devotion and ethical living. Okay, this helps to establish contact or relationship with God. So, one is Nam Japa, that is meditation or constant reciting or constant remembrance of God's name. Okay, so we see that Vaheguru is widely used. Also, you have Sat Nam being used as well. So we see that this practice, okay, what do you think, how does this benefit the person? How does chanting or constant reciting of the name, constant remembering, how does it in a way help the person spiritually? Okay, focus is one, but it also helps the individual to become aware of God's presence. So in a way it also frees the mind, helps the person to build up his own awareness. Next is, as we have seen, life of honesty, service and justice. Okay, so here we see that this basically is with regards to welfare of others. And these are seen as, in a way, essential to understand as well as establish a connection with God. Okay, so through your honest practices, honest living, honest work, honest livelihood, also through serving others, okay, focusing on justice, which all lead to the welfare of others. Similarly, you also have the Sangat and Kirtan. Now, what is the Sangat? Last time we saw, na, pehle Sangat, so pehle first is the eating, then is the community worship or prayer. So, Sangat here refers to the community worship, and Kirtan, yeah, so when we speak about Kirtan, yeah, Kirtan, what hymns, what of hymns it is? So kind of a devotional singing of hymns. Okay, so Kirtan is a devotional and once again these are key forms of establishing contact or being in a relationship with God. So first you have the meditation on God's name or constant recitation or remembrance, then something also which leads you outward. Okay, so something which leads you outward towards others by living a life of honesty, service and justice, and then you have a kind of a community activity. So if you take a look at this, you can classify this as a threefold system. So one is inward, here you will have outward. So these become in a way personal, and here you have the community dimension. So now let's take a look at the spiritual authority. Now who is the spiritual authority for the Sikhs? Okay, so you had the gurus. After the 10th guru, who becomes the spiritual authority? The Guru Granth Sahib. So now why do you think so what is the role of the spiritual authority? Okay, one is guidance. And here we see that the guidance is both spiritual as well as with regards to worldly or temporal affairs. And this we see that in a way is kind of found in the spiritual texts in the Adi Granth or the Guru Granth Sahib. Okay, so therefore when we speak about the spiritual authority, we will have to first look at the Guru Granth Sahib or the Adi Granth. Then also there is the Akal Takht. Okay, and this too will in a way help us to see how they are able to kind of get guidance from these two sources of spiritual authority. So let's come to the Adi Granth, which is kind of the sole spiritual authority. Now this is one of the highest spiritual authority in Sikhism. Now the Adi Granth, by whom was it compiled? He said that, so Guru Gobind Singh said that after him, this would be like the eternal Guru or the spiritual guide. But we see that right before him, somebody had already kind of compiled the Adi Granth, which then becomes the Guru Granth Sahib, right? So we have Guru Arjan, okay, the fifth Guru. So he had basically kind of compiled hymns and prayers together, and also some of the teachings of the Sikh Gurus. Okay, and this in a way represents spiritual wisdom and values that the Sikhs have to follow. So then we have Guru Gobind, now what he does is, he says that the Guru Granth Sahib would be the eternal Guru. Can you put off this? Okay. So here we see that so from this moment, as we know, there would be no human Guru, and all spiritual guidance would come from the Adi Granth or the Guru Granth Sahib. Now we see that this is not something just to be read or just to be proclaimed. It is a kind of a spiritual authority which provides answers to questions of morality, spirituality and life. So it is not to be seen as a text, but it is supposed to be seen as something that guides. When we look at their naming ceremony, we'll also see how the Guru Granth Sahib plays a very important role in that. So it is not just to be seen as a text, but as a eternal Guru or an spiritual authority. Now, what were the two wings on which Sikhism was basically focused on? Two swords or the two wings that we have seen that some of the gurus had started. You had the Miri and the Piri. So you had the spiritual dimension. You also had the worldly or the temporal affairs. So now we see that we also have something where you have people, a place where people come together, they discuss, have discussions, and also in a way they make decisions, collective decisions for the future. So that is the Akal Takht. Okay? So we see that Adi Granth or the Guru Granth Sahib is the source of spiritual guidance. Now we see that the Akal Takht becomes in a way a place for addressing disputes and also making decisions. Now this Akal Takht was established by Guru Har Gobind, the sixth Guru. Not exactly like that, in the sense not like the College of Bishops, but we can say a kind of a place where you have people coming, like, see, when you say College of Bishops, you would say that there would be some heads over there, like, na? So here it's people coming together and in a way taking certain, addressing certain issues, etc. Kind of a council. So we see that this is located in Amritsar, and it is directly facing the Golden Temple. So what does Akal Takht mean? It is throne of the timeless. So one of the main reasons of this, or the symbolism, is that it is kind of a balance between the temporal and the spiritual realms. Now, what is the role of the Akal Takht? First is a spiritual sanction. So we see that whatever resolutions are passed plus whatever decisions are collectively taken, they have spiritual authority. And these decisions or these resolutions are made especially when there is a dispute, or when they feel that they need to guide the Sikh community in a particular direction. Okay, on important matters, these resolutions or decisions are made. Second is also for conclaves or gatherings. So in a way we see that whenever there is a major dispute or major crisis that happens, they gather around. Okay, so a meeting is called in the Akal Takht, and who attend these meetings? Okay, so you have the Sikh scholars, leaders, and also some representatives of the communities that come together in order to discuss, take decisions, and also pass resolutions on certain important matters. And third is the guardianship of Sikh values. So in a way we see that the Akal Takht has a very important role in making sure that the Sikh values, their morality, the ethics and traditions are preserved. So we see that when we look at the interconnection of religion and politics, so we have seen that right from the beginning it had emphasis on spiritual as well as temporal affairs. Now we see that unlike some religions which try to separate the two, that means they keep religion aside and politics aside, Sikhism sees that these two areas are connected. And therefore we see that this connection is very much seen in the establishment of the Khalsa, where you have spiritual commitment by those who join the Khalsa to also look after the social justice as well as political engagement of the people. So when we look at the Khalsa and political sovereignty, so in other words we see that one of the main ideas of Sikh faith is the Khalsa Raj or rule of the Khalsa. There is also a phrase Raj Karega Khalsa, which means the Khalsa will rule. Okay, so the Khalsa shall rule. And this is recited at the conclusion of any Sikh service. So this basically means that the Sikh community has a sanctioned role or has a very important role in governing plus leading society. So what it means is that spiritual authority extends to the political authority. So now, when we saw about the Khalsa yesterday, what were some of the main important things that they have to abide by? So the 5 Ks were there, right? So then you also have them abstaining from kind of tobacco or alcohol, etc. So in a way we see that they are, when it comes to the discipline is very strict there. So this kind of, which helps the spiritual life, they say should also extend towards political authority. That means there should be an outward movement, an outward expression. Just as we say words and deeds, right? So things should be manifested in the deeds. Therefore they say that the spiritual authority or the spiritualness should manifest itself in the political authority. And therefore we see that under the guidance of the Guru, they must strive for a just and righteous society. Okay, a society which upholds values of truth, justice and equality. So now when we hear about this term, okay, the Khalsa shall rule, okay, it is important not to mistake it as a political dominance. Okay, so it is not a political dominance, but we see that it is establishing of a society that follows principles of fairness, protection of weak, service to others, and also a righteous governance. Okay, so it's not a political dominance, but as we see, the whole focus is on a just and righteous society.